So do either of you want to own up to spying in your day? Eddie, you can go first.
No. I go first, but I say no.
Matt?
I'll go second, no. Mate, look, I think it probably around the 2003 World Cup, I think there was a huge amount of it going on left, right and centre. I know it was. I thought it had stopped, to be honest with you. You know, there's a lot of silliness was going on, guys. You know, people had to change training grounds. I know when I was in Australia, in Scotland, I think it was 2005, we'd tell them we're training somewhere, and because I knew the Sydney and Brisbane landscapes, I'd ring up a school that I knew, and we'd go and train at the school. You wouldn't tell them where you were training because there'd be people turning up looking at you for sure. I thought it had gone. I have no reason to doubt Joe. He wouldn't say it unless he was sending a message to one of the other teams that they were busted. But you know, I know it did go on, but I'm a bit shocked that it's still there.
I'm not sure. It's. I think, in fairness, Joe Schmidt made the point that it's not really important anymore because the video analysis now is so detailed. And there's so much information. Like, we've come so far in the last 15 years in terms of information for a coach. I mean, you can literally break a player's game down into minutiae, can blame a team's attack to defence. And the notion of having somebody up a tree with binoculars, like, you know, on a Friday afternoon trying to see something that might happen the next day sounds bizarre, you know. But there probably was a bit of it going on. I mean, yeah, it was going on, I think, in the 80s as well. But I think it's a pointless exercise now. You really just back the data you get from the opposition watching them play. Everybody accepts that happens. But I think I can't imagine it's widespread at this point.
I presume, Eddie, when you were doing the captain's run in the opposition stadium, you were very wary about doing anything for the next game.
Well, we never did it in the opposition stadium. That was the thing. The only people that went to the opposition stadium the day of a game were the kickers. They could scout them if they wanted to. Okay. But we always went to a different venue. You just assume that if you were there, you might get somebody be there watching you, and some of it might be innocuous. You know, somebody's there that works for the staff of the union, and they see something, and they might ring you up and say, "Oh yeah, did you see that 5-man line out?" You know, but I think it's pretty pointless exercise. You know, we used to never go. We just used to train in the morning anyway. The other thing was, you usually get a slot in the afternoon, like 3 or 4 o'clock, and it didn't suit because guys wanted to go to bed in the afternoons before a test game to get some, you know, rest. And you'd usually do your captain's run in the morning, and you didn't often get the time you wanted at the stadium. The only time I would ever go to the stadium would be if it was a new stadium we hadn't played there before, and younger players might, you know, want to get the feel of the place. But even then, some of them used to just go with the kickers and kick the ball around just to get a sense of what it was like. But,
right.
We never went and took our training slot. It was for the kickers, really. Okay,
I didn't realise that. Matt, for away days, captain's runs, did you just assume you were being videotaped or watched in some respect?
You've sort of blindsided me here, Jay, but I do remember quite a funny story. We played, it was when I was with the Waratahs. It wasn't a national team, and we were in South Africa, and I will just say where it was. It was in Natal. And we found one of the staff had done a bit of a walk around, and up in a box there was a video camera playing down onto the field. And so we did a series of lineouts that we weren't going to play the next day because that's what they were after. And as Eddie said, you didn't show anything. You know, you went there, and that was very early days. I think it was only the second time we'd ever been to Africa. I think back in the 90s, and sure enough, they turned up with a line-out defence for all the line-outs that we'd done that night before, but we weren't actually using. So it was, I went up to I won't name the coach. He was a nice guy, and we had a good giggle afterwards. But
we
it was just what was done. But Eddie's point is absolutely salient. Not every game was telecast. You didn't have these incredible analysis packages that you have now. You didn't have staff that were highly trained. You didn't have technology on computers to do the analysis. Like, it was just a different world, you know. In some stages there, in the very early days, people were still using videotapes, you know. It wasn't on hard drives and things. So I do think it's an irrelevance, except maybe for a line out. But look, I think the shame of being caught, as we all found out there was an allegation against the Wallabies which turned out to be incorrect, turned out to be a hoax, that someone was putting bugs in the New Zealand team room when they were in Sydney. I mean, it was hugely embarrassing and demeaning to the Wallabies, and as it proved, it was untrue. I think there's so much to lose by doing it now, and not a massive amount to gain. But I'm very surprised at it.
Okay. You wanted to come in there briefly, Eddie, before we move on?
Yeah. The irony of it all is that we, I remember first time I won in Murrayfield way back, we let a set of fake dino calls behind us at training that were old ones.
Right.
And they disappeared, so I think Scotland were banking on the next day. So it was a very bad weather. It was snowed over or frozen, and we trained in a gym. And we left a set of old line-out calls behind us in the gym intentionally on top of the bin. And we went back 2 hours later and they were gone. And they insisted they never were there. So we had a pretty good day at the line-out the following day. As I think, like Matt said, they were banking on one set and we went with another. But that was kind of reversing it, you know. But I think it doesn't make any sense in the modern game. I think it's something we're talking about, really. It's more of an entertainment.
I suspect Joe Schmidt knew what he was doing when he threw this one out there, and it was all the talk of the Sunday papers yesterday.